You've heard of Chucky and maybe of Annabelle, but have you ever heard of Robert the doll? Well, keep listening and I'll fill you in on the history and mystery of Robert the doll. Robert Eugene Otto was born on October 25, 1900. He was the youngest son of Thomas and Minnie Otto. Robert Eugene preferred to be called Gene and grew up on his family's wealthy estate in Key West, Florida. By all accounts, he was a deeply imaginative and playful young boy. Robert, a 41-inch high doll, was made in 1904 by a German company named the Stief Factory. They were founded in 1880 and were best known for producing the first teddy bear in honor of Theodore Roosevelt and the high-end collector's bears of today. Robert the doll was purchased as a birthday gift by Gene's grandfather. There are several legends on Robert's origins, although the gift story is the most widely accepted. Other legends are that a servant gave Robert to Gene as a retaliation for her being treated poorly by his parents. The woman was said to have cursed the doll with voodoo, which filled the vessel of the doll with evil spirits. Another legend reports that Robert was bought haunted, or that Gene himself projected supernatural powers onto Robert by blaming his childhood wrongdoings on him. It's assumed that the blue and white sailor suit worn by Robert was probably not an outfit from the factory, but an outfit worn by Gene. Gene, like a lot of children do, would say Robert did it when he misbehaved. He developed an unhealthy relationship with Robert. He thought of Robert as a living being. Gene took Robert with him everywhere, snuck him scraps of food during meals, and even propped Robert up next to him while taking his baths. Even stranger, he would talk about Robert in the first person. Gene built Robert his own room in the attic complete with furniture and toys, including Robert's own teddy bear. His parents were to have reported hearing responses to Gene's questioning spoken in an unfamiliar voice. This other voice sounded markedly different from Gene's. It was deeper and more rough-sounding. It was Robert. Gene's parents would sometimes enter his room to find him huddled up in the fetal position, looking terrified, in a corner. Robert sat in a chair on the other side of the room. Once they heard Gene screaming in the middle of the night. When they burst into his room, they found all the furniture knocked over. Visitors to the Otto home were reported to have heard the sounds of giggles and footsteps coming from different rooms in the house. The servants often found that Robert had moved to a different location to where they had seen him just moments earlier. They also witnessed Robert change his facial expression and blink. Gene's great-aunt thought of a solution during a visit: place Robert in a wooden box in the attic. She was sure that separating him from Gene would rob Robert of the power he held. Gene's great-aunt was found dead in her room the following day. The doctors ruled that it was a stroke, but Thomas and Minnie were doubtful. As an adult, Gene lived in a stately home he called the Artist House, where Robert could be seen positioned at the upstairs window. Some said Robert would appear and disappear. Robert the doll remained in the family home at 534 Eaton Street in Key West, Florida, while Gene studied art in New York and Paris. On May 3, 1930, Gene married his wife Ann Parker, who he'd met while traveling in Europe. They returned to America and planned to start their new family in Gene's childhood home. Gene picked up his relationship with Robert right where it had left off. Gene carried Robert everywhere with him. Robert even sat with Gene and during meals and sat by the bed while they slept. Ann was very uncomfortable and became fed up with Robert's presence in their lives. She convinced Gene to lock Robert back in the attic. Even though Robert was supposed to be locked up, he would often be found sitting in a rocking chair while staring out the window. Gene and Ann would hear footsteps coming from the attic, as well as the sound of childlike laughter. Gene passed away in 1974, and passed just 2 years later. Though it's unconfirmed, it's rumored that she was driven insane by Robert and committed suicide. The home went through many owners who reported strange behaviors from Robert, such as being followed around the house and attempted strangling. Some reported waking up to Robert sitting at the end of the bed with a kitchen knife in his hand. The final owner of the house, Myrtle Reuter, sold the property to those interested in making it a guest house. Robert was donated to the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. Robert sits comfortably in a case that is complete with humidity control and UV filtering glass in his sailor suit with what appears to be a dog on his lap. Opinions differ on whether Robert's pet is a dog, a cat, or a lion. Robert receives yearly checkups from the museum's curator, Corey Convertito, in which she weighs him to make sure Robert's stuffing made of Excelsior hasn't been affected by the humid Florida weather. Museum visitors have reported seeing Robert blinking, moving, and changing his expression. Robert is said to punish those who offend him, typically through insulting either himself or Jean. People who take photos of Robert have their equipment stop working and start again once they leave the museum. Robert has caused physical harm, car accidents, divorce, and job loss to those who do not follow the rules of asking before taking photos. Robert receives several letters a day begging him for forgiveness. These letters surround the walls of Robert's display case. Not all letters sent to Robert are pleas for forgiveness. Some ask for advice or request curses to be placed on others. He also receives a steady flow of gifts at the museum, such as money and sugary sweets. Occasionally, Convertito corresponds on Robert's behalf. Because Jean had a childlike temperament around Robert, she tries to send something to every child who writes him. She also responds to more touching ones, such as an email from a girl who was being bullied at school. Robert received a letter from President George W. Bush on October 11, 2005.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below to be notified when a new video is released.